Hello, welcome back to Oliver's Greenhouse. Now I'm afraid the subject of today's video is not in any way a happy one, so I will warn you, for those of you that are squeamish, those of you that are easily upset, this probably isn't the video for you. So most of you will remember I uploaded a video about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks now, about Philip, my pet, at the time, pet house Martin. It's not good news, but basically Philip was doing really well for the last 3 weeks, and we were building up to putting his nest box back up in the roof space so that he could integrate back in with the colony of house martins. Now about 4 days ago he started to get some really weird conjunctivitis in his eyes sort of closed up. So it was a quick trip to the local vets, and they've been very kind, and they treated him without charging me for the appointment, which is very good. Otherwise it would have cost me a bit of money, other than the drugs which I had to buy for him. So anyway, we had some antibiotic eye drops. I applied them for about 3 days with no sort of discernible improvement in his health. He was still feeding and drinking as normal, and his normal sort of self, despite sort of obviously having poor eyesight at the time. And then yesterday, or it was actually technically the day before, he was definitely not himself, off his food, and very ill. So it was another trip back to the vets, and they were unsure as to whether or not we were going to give him some form of bird antibiotic or not. Anyway, the decision was made that we were going to wait, and I was going to take him to the wildlife hospital, which is nearby. Unfortunately, that at some point during that night after feeding, I put him to bed. Unfortunately, he passed away. I don't really like that term, pass away. Being an atheist myself, I don't really believe in that, but unfortunately he died. So I had a horrible morning of finding a dead Philip in his box. So I'm surprisingly upset about it. You know, we sort of used to go everywhere together because he was so dependent upon me. So he was always perched on his box, even in the van, on the way to jobs and stuff like that. So I've had a long think about what it is that likely made him ill, and I can only assume it was some sort of internal parasite or something, or maybe an infection, because everything I was doing, I was informed by the vets, was right, and they were very impressed with my efforts, and he'd been doing really well. So unfortunately it's just one of those things. Birds do have a bit of a habit of not letting you know anything's wrong right until the last minute. So yeah, a sad story, and a very unhappy end. The family's pretty sad about it as well. So I've now arrived at this point where I have a dead bird, to which I want more than a bird really as well, a pet basically, and what to do with a dead Philip. So the thoughts were basically to inter his remains or to bury him in the garden, but I'm prepared to do a lot of landscaping once the weather has cooled down a little bit and it's got a bit moister, because obviously it'd be like digging concrete at the moment. So I've been thinking about it, and I think he enjoyed his life the most and seemed to be his most vibrant, most happy in the greenhouse. So I've made the decision that I am going to bury Philip under the floor of the greenhouse. So it's going to involve some raking back of the shingle, some lifting of the geomembrane, and some excavating, because we want to get Philip sort of, well, not 6 foot, but a good distance below ground level. So that's what, unfortunately, going to be the contents of this video. So if you are upset by this, then I'm terribly sorry. It's certainly not my intention, but I thought you might want to know what's been going on, and also come along for the slightly overly emotional ride that's about to ensue. So I'll set you up in the greenhouse. Actually, no, I won't. We'll get Philip first and wrap him up and say goodbye. Okay. Where's poor Philip? Let's get the paper off of his hands. Poor Philip. Say goodbye to Philip, kids. Bye-bye, Philip. Poor Philip. Daddy very sad.
Why, Daddy?
Because he was my friend. That's why. But I want to wrap him up because I don't. The thought of soil going on him I find rather unpleasant. So I think popping him in here is a much nicer way of
Yeah. Because if they're 13, we don't want you
I don't want dirt going on
Maybe
in there.
just on him. If you get a teacher on him, he'll let him get dirty. Stuff. Hailstone. Unless he gets good. What are you doing? Look. What is that? Mud. Could be doing some more mud to it.
Yeah, mate. What's up?
I don't believe this. Why do you have to go so far down in the ground?
What happens to a body when it dies, Harry?
Yeah, it's dead.
And then what happens when it's in the ground? What does it do before it turns into soil, Harry? What process does it? What, no, before that, what process to it? What happens to all the soft tissue? What happens when bacteria start to eat a dead body, Harry? It rots, doesn't it? And when something rots, it can give off a rather unpleasant smell. So by putting Philip at a reasonable depth, this is the same thing that happens to everybody and every living thing when it dies. It enters back into the nitrogen cycle.
Yeah. First through the nitrogen cycle, then you turn into a person, then you turn into life, then back into the nitrogen cycle.
So we're going to dig a decent sized hole like this.
So what is that?
All right, kids, do you want to put Philip in the hole?
Yeah.
You do it together. Carefully. Put him in gently, don't drop him. That's it. Do you want to do it? Do it gently then. Let Harry do some as well, Emma. It's all about saying goodbye to Philip, isn't it?
Yeah.
Come and stand over here, sweetheart.
Why?
I said so.
I know how to turn.
It is very sad, Harry. It's a spider. It is. Daddy likes spiders because they help to kill the things in the greenhouse which shouldn't be in here. Well, we know you don't like spiders, but I like spiders.
I'm scared of spiders, but I like spiders.
Okay.
Definitely don't like
All these things play a very important part of our ecosystem. So they're all equally important. Flies also do an important part. Well, they carry bacteria which break down things, so they're part of the nitrogen cycle as well. There we go. That's it. It's done. Well, not a particularly happy video, but I think, you know, we can take some solace from what happened. I did everything we possibly could to make his unfortunately very short life as enjoyable as possible, and as much of a it is a real shame that he didn't get a chance to sort of go back to the colony of House Martins and do what he should have done, you know, migrated and all of those things that a House Martin normally does. But you know, he was on the floor, so he would have been eaten by something anyway, so we gave him the best chance he possibly could, and at least he had some life rather than no life at all. So I'll be coming back to you with a much happier video on a much brighter note in the near future. So thanks for watching.